Welcome to Epilogue Podcast, the show where we discuss some stuff that happened on a different show ages ago which nobody really cares about anymore.
Hello, I'm Portponky.
And I'm LeBloc.
Today we are discussing Deep Space Nine, Season 2, Episode 17, Playing God. In this episode, Jadzia has to assess a Trill candidate and deals with a bizarre, unrelatable science problem. Meanwhile, O'Brien tries to get rid of a vole infestation.
And Jake has the hots for a girl. Or, excuse me, a woman.
Yes. This was another example of Ben almost freaking out and then sort of saying, yeah, okay.
He's not as stern as we've been led to believe.
I think his initial reaction is to make Jake like he is, but he resists.
He realizes, oh wait, that's a horrible idea.
Yeah, why does he know all the Devil Girls by name?
He collects their trading cards.
Don't be silly, the only trading cards he collects is baseball cards.
Hologram baseball cards?
Maybe.
Wait, why are we starting off with the dumbest plot point? Well, it's not even the dumbest, I won't say that. The
A plot was the dumbest.
Well, dumbest isn't the adjective I would use, but it was really weird that we had this plot about whether or not an entire universe should be destroyed, and it's secondary. That's a really heavy subject, and it's not the main one, and that's really weird, and it throws the episode off balance.
Yeah, the script was originally about that with the Trill candidate as the B plot, but then they rewrote it to swap them around.
Okay. They're both good stories. They could both be the main plot of different episodes, but to mash them together and then have the universe one a secondary plot is really strange.
I never really got into the universe plotline. It was just too weird and it's too hard to believe that such a thing could ever happen in any sense.
And then they abandon any kind of meaningful resolution. They just dump it somewhere.
Yeah.
So Cisco never had to make the hard decision.
Well, they said, we've got to stop it or it'll blow up this entire sector. Oh, well, just dump it in the Gamma Quadrant. Who cares about that place?
And we're given no indication that it has an expansion limit, so it could just keep expanding and destroy the universe.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot about the science. Well, I don't really want to call it science because it was fictional science, but there's a lot about it that was not really pleasing. They threw around a lot of concepts that I don't think really made a lot of sense.
Like what?
Like having another universe inside the universe. And then saying, it doesn't adhere to our physical laws, but let's teleport it. And to make sure not to drive through a Verteron node. Are those things solid? They look solid. I guess they're not.
Why were those things there? I kind of mentally checked out.
They're always there.
Okay. That's why people struggle with the wormhole?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess. I don't think they really explain why the wormhole is difficult to traverse sometimes. I guess it's those things. I don't think they're solid, but they appear solid. I guess it's some sort of space wobble that makes things challenging.
Another weird thing about that plotline is when Cisco has the 1 hour to decide the fate of the universe, the Universe 2, Universe Junior. He kills time by talking about ladies with his son, and that's weird. And he doesn't contact anyone. Shouldn't he bring this up to higher command? Hey, there's this universe expanding that could overtake ours.
Yeah, you'd think he would immediately be on the dog and bone to Starfleet HQ.
Maybe they have some universe-destroying protocol or something.
It's okay to destroy a universe if you really have to.
If it threatens your own.
But, okay, I don't know, I can't get over how daft I felt it was. I guess the idea is interesting. Time is different, and maybe destroying it could be wiping out vast civilizations. But I can't really relate to that at all.
Neither could the writers. They just gave up on a real resolution.
I guess.
We don't know what to do with this. Let's just dump it.
I think I always zone out whenever the stakes get ridiculously high. Oh no, if we crash into a Virturon node, then we'll blow up everything in the world. Even Cardassia will be blown up. Okay, well, at that point, I know they're obviously going to make it.
Yeah.
It's not a realistic bluff by the writers.
Right. It feels way more tense when it's a smaller scale, such as in the previous episode, where that little town could be wiped out, and they're holograms, and I don't want to get too much into it. That was the previous episode, but when you go that big with the scale and in a secondary plot, it just rings really hollow.
Yeah, there is some sort of sweet spot between overly high stakes and low stakes that are so low you don't care.
Yeah.
It must be really hard to get it pitch perfect. So I guess it's good that they often do get it right. I just don't think this was one of those times.
No, it wasn't.
So I guess the main plot line was about Arjun, who wants to be a Trill boy.
He wants to grow up into a Trill man.
What was your opinion of him?
So there's a point in the episode where Dax warns, this symbiont will overwhelm your personality. And I thought, what personality are you talking about? This guy is... he's a nobody.
Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me that it would overwhelm his personality. Jadzio's personality was overwhelming his personality.
Yeah, he had nothing there to begin with.
I guess I didn't really like the A plot line either, if I think about it. Arjun was just not that likable.
At all?
Yeah, he acted in the way that you can predict a sort of slightly angsty character will act. He throws a tantrum, he gets drunk and mopes.
Yeah.
He tows a universe through a wormhole whilst drunk.
As you do.
Yeah, I was sitting there thinking whilst they're dragging that universe, wait a minute, he's just been in Quarks all morning. He's wasted. There's a lot of alcoholism in this episode. Jadzia's morning drink was a Ferengi black hole, which was presumably honkingly alcoholic.
If it's not alcoholic, then it smells really bad. He scrunched his face. But I think we can assume it's alcoholic.
Yeah, and she was going to work that day. She wasn't having a day off. This was her in uniform, going to ops, swigging hard liquor.
Well, she's drinking for two.
That doesn't sound right.
Yeah, that sounds horrible. Maybe her drunkenness would explain why she just handed a dead animal to Arjun when vermin can be hosts to disease and he could possibly contract something.
I don't think that would be a problem in Star Trek world.
Yeah, they're so cavalier about physical ailments. Yeah, we can fix you right up.
Yeah, well, they literally can.
Yeah, I guess I would just be throwing carcasses around too.
I think she wanted to shock him.
Yeah, here's something you may face as a Trill for some reason.
I didn't really get the whole point of the host candidate stuff. What was his purpose there. He had to be assessed by Jadzia.
Right.
I think what made it fall flat for me is when he did the heroic wormhole piloting, and she said, "Oh, it's going to look really great on your recommendation." But it's not about his practical skills. We know he has the skills, and in this situation, he has literally no choice. Okay, so he didn't curl up in fear and drop on the floor in a mess, but, well, they would have died anyway if that happens, so big deal. I don't know why that would have affected it. So I guess at that point I started to question what the whole point of the host candidate initiative was.
Yeah, presumably it all comes down to Jadzia's decision. So is she writing to herself?
Well, she writes to the troll board and they would take her recommendation
But it's up to
on board.
her, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I guess if she says, no, this guy's no good, then he almost certainly would not get it. I can't even remember if she said she was going to give him a positive or negative recommendation. Did it tell you?
He should have gotten a negative.
I feel he should have got a negative. He was just very bland and uninteresting, and I think
He's a wet blanket.
Yeah, the symbiont would have just overwhelmed him and he would have gone mental and flipped out. I think it was interesting to compare him to Varod back in that invasive procedures episode, another Trill who wanted a worm real bad.
Yeah.
Varod actually wasn't like that. He was pretty sure of himself.
Yeah, Varad was steadfast and had ambition. Two things Arjun did not have. Dax, well, I think it was Dax, said it best that he's writing his father's ambitions, which is totally true. But that message is really weird because it's the same as the last one, the previous episode, how you shouldn't follow the ambitions of your parents. It's a great message, but it's just weird to have it back to back.
There's been a lot of parent stuff. We had Dr. Paul as well. A bit of dad angst going on in this show. I'm sure they'll get it out of their system soon enough.
There's so much to mine out of dad angst. I could see them going to that well.
Well, it's Steven Spielberg's entire career.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm being flippant when I say that. I have a couple things I would like to address.
Let's hear it.
There's a couple of really clunky lines in this episode. For example, "These ships practically fly themselves," says Jadzia, as both of them are using both their arms to hit loads of buttons.
It's all for show. They're playing Candy Crush.
Competitively.
Yeah, head to head.
Puyo Puyo on.
Otherwise, it's really boring because those ships fly themselves. You have to keep busy.
Jadzia also had another line. Okay, both of these are actually from Jadzia now I think about it. "There's a 17-meter gap. This ship is only 14 meters wide. That gives you over 2 meters to work with. Also known as 3 meters.
You can't use exactly 3, though. Then you'll scrape surfaces.
Scrape a Virtron node.
Yeah, but you don't want to scrape a Vetron node.
Yeah, that might blow up your universe that you've got in your picnic hamper in the back. My other complaint is that none of the plot lines in this episode get resolved.
Yeah.
None of them. The Vols, we never find out. I don't think we find out if Arjun gets a good recommendation. I maybe missed it.
It's hinted that he does.
Yeah, but it didn't outright
dumb.
say. The universe, they just dump it somewhere. Jake's gonna invite a dabble girl round, whatever. I don't know. It's like they wrote 45 minutes and said, right, just pens down. Let's get to filming.
Don't change a thing.
Draw a line through it there. We're gonna film it. I know I've been critical of them leaving plot threads unfinished. And for example,
that's fair.
The Vol plotline didn't really need to be finished. I wouldn't have criticised that if that had been the only one that I felt was left loose because it was a joke plotline and it didn't need to go anywhere.
Yeah.
But I do get frustrated when important plotlines aren't resolved in a way which leaves you thinking, yes, I can see now the point of that and where it was going.
Which did not happen here.
No, I was just left thinking, oh, okay, that was a bunch of stuff. I've got a couple things to praise it for, though.
Okay, let's dive into positive things.
Positive things. I really liked when Quark was complaining about the vol and O'Brien turns on the thing, the sonic repellent.
And he's really slow to turn it off.
Quark just lets out this god-awful sound and just disappears behind the counter.
What are you going to do about these pests, O'Brien?
Relax, Quark. We're working on something new that ought to make the Vols beg for mercy.
What is it?
Well, a sonic... You all right? Are you all right?
What?
Again, with the general apathy to physical ailments, Quark suffers ear damage. No one cares.
He seemed almost deaf afterwards. It was funny.
Yeah, I thought it was funny. I'm not complaining. It's just they don't care when people are injured.
They'll give him new hearing if he needs it. The other one I liked was they totally dodged a trope that really frustrates me.
Ooh, which one?
It's to do with how chess games play out.
Oh, man.
Whenever, and this happens in so many things, they resume a chess game or the scene starts with them in the process of playing a game of chess.
Wait, let me guess. They say checkmate as soon as the conversation ends. Is that it? No.
No. Well, yes, but first one player has to check the other player, and then they do a couple more moves, and the other player then declares checkmate, which comes as a total surprise to the first player, because apparently they can't see 2 moves ahead in endgame of chess.
What if they just started playing? In 7 lifetimes,
like
Jadzia never got around to playing chess until now.
Well, they didn't do it in this. They totally avoided it, and that's great, because that is that trope, the way chess plays out, where it's a check and then responded with a surprise checkmate. That doesn't happen. You don't get surprise checkmate in chess. It's not a surprise ever, unless you don't know what you're doing.
They're just randomly moving pieces on the board.
They weren't in this one, though. They were reenacting part of the game of the century.
Whoa, really?
Bobby Fischer and a guy who lost to Bobby Fischer.
The other player's name is Donald Byrne.
That's a pretty neat detail.
Yes, there's an excellent YouTube video describing the game of the century. It's well worth looking up because it's very interesting, and I'm glad that they put that as a reference. And I'm also glad they didn't use space chess with all the different levels that they have on Star Trek sometimes.
Yeah, at this point, I'm really thankful when anything from our own world, what we know of, appears in Star Trek, and they didn't see to update it or fiddle with it.
Yeah, it is satisfying.
And chess is a great example to remain with the status quo. It's been around for ages now.
Yeah, I hope it goes away. I don't like chess.
Neither do I, but as a piece of scenery, it's fine.
Yeah, I think it will probably be around in 400 years. It is. I diss on it because Go is a better game, but yeah, it was good they did that. They handled that scene really well.
I like when Jadzia talks about herself in the third person, because who you are before Symbiont and after, you're effectively 2 different people. So when you're talking about that past version of yourself, it makes sense to use, for Trills to use the third person. And I like that little detail.
Yeah, it does stand out, but it does make sense how detached they are from their different forms that they have been in their life. because otherwise it would be almost impossible to discuss things which they have known from different viewpoints. And it's good they made a Dax episode that's actually about Dax doing some Dax stuff that wouldn't have worked with another Trill replacing her, because it actually delved into her past and why she is how she is.
Yeah, it's a shame it's trapped inside this episode.
Yeah.
I liked a lot of the Dax stuff. It's just how it's framed is unfortunate.
It's also unfortunate it took until 17th episode of the second season that she got an episode about her that had her in it.
Oh, right. We need to focus on one of our main characters.
Yeah, she has been more interesting recently. She's been doing some good science stuff. Not just in this episode, but in a few previous episodes. Her character has taken some form.
This season has handled Dax much more deftly than the previous. So I'm still glad how they did the Dax stuff in this episode, but overall, not a fan of this episode.
Me neither. Do you have a quote?
Don't play with my ears unless you're serious about it.
Ooh. Quark getting feisty. Ugh.
Ignoring the grossness of that, it is good not to tease people.
Like in terms of plot and exposition and stuff.
Yeah,
Or
this
just in
episode
general.
teased us.
Yeah, it seemed like it was going to be really good, but then it was just mediocre.
Just hearing the premise sounds good. A candidate for symbiont is assessed by Dax. That sounds good. You could go into when Dax went through the process and how she feels about it, etc. There's so much to talk about there, but then
Yeah, old wounds to open.
Yeah, but it wasn't handled well.
Oh well. Oh, one thing we haven't addressed, to change subject. Rule of acquisition 112. Never have sex with the boss's sister.
I guess all Ferengi bosses have sisters. I didn't like that one because it's weirdly specific.
Yeah. Plus, I'm sure there is ways in which that could be profitable somehow. It's too specific to say that that is always gonna turn out badly for your wallet.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense in terms of acquisition.
The way Ferengis treat women anyway, it's odd that they care.
Yeah, and wouldn't the boss's sister be caged up naked somewhere? I don't know.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Ferengi.
Was that your Odo impression?
Yes.
What does he say? I don't step on ants, Major?
How do they know what ants are? They're from Earth. Have either of them been to Earth?
The word could be adopted in the future to mean any tiny thing.
That would be insects.
Shh.
Or space ants.
I don't step on space ants, Major.
Kira was a bit kill happy.
That was a little weird. I explained it in my head canon by saying it was a religious thing, because she does say, "May the prophets be with you," or something like that in this episode.
Yeah, she's got spiritual sort of prayer for them.
So maybe there's something in scripture about destroying any universe that threatens your own.
What? That is very forward thinking for a religious text if they have that.
You gotta cover all your bases. Baseball analogy.
Oh! Okay, I think it is definitely time to call it quits on this episode.
Yeah, I agree.
Alright.